Welcome, Oliver. The floor is yours.
All right. All right. Can you guys see this?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry if I've got a bit of a cough, by the way. I'm recovering from a cold, so bear with me. But basically, I wanted to cover scaling SEO from startup to growth today. If nobody knows who I am, my name is Oliver Whitham. I am the Senior Online Marketing Manager at WP Engine. At this company, I handle all of our day-to-day SEO and SEM activities. I also own Austin Virtual Workers, which is a co-working group from coffee shops, and Austin Marketers, which is a local marketing community. I also am a dog owner. This is Tina Turner right here. She's my dog, and I'm an avid reader. So just a bit of background here. At WP Engine, we've gone from a pretty small company to over close to 100,000 customers now globally. So we've had some pretty significant growth, and that's come with a lot of challenges. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, like some of the biggest issues I've seen with scaling SEO and how we dealt with those. So, sorry for me. So why you should worry about scaling early on? It's pretty simple. Like, it's a lot easier to get ahead of the game now than later. If you look at any SEO growth, it quickly starts to pile up in terms of all the content that's coming out, technical SEO on all the pages that are released, working with other teams who are also uploading content, working with development teams for some of even the basic technical SEO side of things, and getting things implemented quickly. As you grow as a company, it does take longer to get things rolled out of the door. But it also gets easier too. The good news is that basically as your company grows, you'll get more and more resources, and your brand will grow as well. So you get more content budget, you'll get more people writing content, you'll get more technically savvy development teams who are able to implement some SEO techniques that would have previously been out of your reach. As your brand value grows as well, like, it'll be way easier to rank for some of your core terms. And of course, when you have a PR team on board, it makes getting links so much easier from top name domains. So I want to cover like 3 basic areas. Number 1 is going to be the most important. Scaling content is probably the hardest part of this whole thing. Sorry. Technical SEO comes with a lot of issues. And then there's the technology stack. If you want to scale your SEO, you really need to have the technology behind you to make it work. Okay, but first, follow the ABCs. Always be checking Google Search Console, Google Analytics, and any other SEO tracking and intelligence tools you use. You're going to want to keep a close eye on these all the time. You want to make sure that you're on top of it whenever you see an error, whether it's caused by you or somebody else in the company. You're also going to want to make sure that if you have any areas of opportunity, Google Search Console specifically is really good at highlighting potential areas for keyword expansion. So first off, keyword growth. Keyword growth is definitely a struggle when it comes to scale. When you're first getting started, keyword growth doesn't seem like a big deal. Like, you just want to rank for the keywords you want to rank for. But over time, like, you'll start to run out of keywords that you're trying to rank, and that can present a whole world of problems. In the early stages when this happens, you can start to split off some of the long tail keywords to separate pages and use those to support head term keywords to help those maintain top positions. But you can also start to look at where your competitors are ranking that you are not. SEO Interactive and SEMrush can provide competitor keyword gap analyses to kind of show you what keywords your competitors are ranking for that you're not, where you're both ranking for the same keyword, and what the difference is, the delta, so you can try and find out where you can improve there. And you can start to use that to really build out a full range of profitable keywords. This is also a good opportunity to start building out thought leadership content, going away from a direct sales model as you grow to generating leads and MQLs, especially if you have a sales team on board. Building out thought leadership content can give you a whole breadth of keywords that are kind of away from the hey, buy this range and into the hey, are you interested in this, or hey, let me teach you something. And so when you start to look at keyword growth, yeah, getting those MQLs is key. And just to reiterate, you can always find opportunities in your keyword tools. Always be checking Search Console. You never know when a long tail phrase is going to show up. That is pretty awesome. I love that guy. And just to go into a little bit more depth here, as you scale, you do have more data to play with. You get more solutions. You have more authority, so you get more long tail keywords that you can track. You can also build relationships with industry experts way easier to get those backlinks. You can review your ranking content and compare it to others who rank above you. The competitor landscape gets way more competitive, so you definitely see more opportunities for growth. And if you're ranking for a long-term keyword, you can more visibly see what works and what doesn't when you begin to experiment. If you do have a larger site as well, make sure you have like a blog and or a resource center style section. This is a great area to build out some long tail keywords, excuse me, to kind of support those head term keywords that are really like the money making keywords on your site. So the biggest issue I've had with growing and scaling SEO content, or SEO in general at the WP Engine, has been content production. We've tried and tested 3 methods. The internal method, where we have hired a copywriter. They're high knowledge. They know about your company. They know what you're doing. They know your brand message, and they can talk to it well, but it's hard scale and it's expensive. We've tried external resources, which are easier to scale and cheap, but it is harder to find that quality. They're generally low knowledge about your company, your brand, your messaging, and the writers may change without notice. And there's also, sorry, excuse me, other internal departments. So SMEs, subject matter experts from more technical areas of your company may be able to write some content for your potential tech-savvy customers. But again, this is much harder to scale. It's very limited in availability. You can annoy some of the hiring managers as the managers of these people if you take up too much of their time. And these are often highly paid developers, so it's more expensive than having an internal writer. What we did find was you can mix this pretty well and use a combination of internal, external, and subject matter experts to create content. So you're not overloading everybody. And the trick is building out a process that allows you to move the content to the right place. So when it's being created at every stage, the right teams are involved to create the content as cheap as possible, but also as high quality as possible. So this is kind of a very basic overview of the process I use for that I created to handle the content growth at scale. And this kind of breaks it down into like basically like a keyword, content outline, copy creation, and audit process. Just to run through this pretty fast, and this is a process we still use today. We start off with keyword ideation, and this could be a meeting. It could be that somebody is just doing some research on the side. But basically, whether it's one of our external companies or internal, we come up with a list of keywords that could be a good potential fit. After this, we'll go through a keyword review, and that's when we'll sit down, we'll look at the traffic, and we'll decide which keywords are worth going after, which are relevant, whether or not we think it will be a sales generating keyword or a thought leadership style keyword. Excuse me. And then we pass that on to an external team, in this case, who create content outlines. A content outline will literally create the structure of the article. This is the title, this is the description, these are the different headlines, and this is kind of what you need to write about. Once we've reviewed the content outline, we'll send it to the relevant person to create the copy, and the copy creation will come through again for review. We'll then publish the copy and then do an SEO audit to make sure that it's been published correctly. Generally speaking, it is published correctly. I think it's really good, but it's still worth double checking just to make sure that you have the correct H tags in place, etc. Next big issue that we found with scale is duplication. We all know that duplication is bad. Unfortunately, as an organization grows and you have a lot of different teams involved, that message can get lost. Not everybody who's going to be putting content on the website is an SEO expert. So what we find is that there's a ton of tools out there that can help with on-site duplication. Deep Crawl can do this pretty well. But you can also do some manual checks, especially for some content such as landing pages, white paper, blog posts and stuff, things that are highlighting content which may appear somewhere else on the site. And the good news is that there's a few solutions for dealing with this that are pretty easy. You can no index pages, especially if they're PPC. You can rewrite content if it's important, and you can always canonicalize a page to if you have like a source of truth that you want to make like the spot. And again, like this is a pretty basic SEO right here, but titles and metas are by far the most common duplication issue. They're very easy to fix. You can use tools such as Screaming Frog, or Deep Crawl, or any other number of scraping tools to try and find these issues. Sorry, but it is a big issue. Duplicate titles and metas can affect performance over time, and considering how easy it is to fix these, it's well worth doing at least a monthly scrape of the site just to make sure that these don't exist. So the other big thing you'll see, especially as companies grow, is thin content and gateway pages. Thin content is worse than no content. You want to regularly review your site for thin content and keep an eye on Google Webmaster Tools for any potential warnings. I would recommend utilizing a tool such as Deep Crawl. That will ping you whenever you have it set to crawl, just being like, hey, these pages are pretty weak, it's time to update them. Very important to work with the teams that are uploading thin content to make sure that they understand why it's an issue. I often hear excuses such as, it's just a landing page, we don't have time to write content, it's not important. But you can help train these people to understand that we do have options for dealing with these light pages. If it's not important or you don't have time, you should either no index the page, rewrite it, or expand it to really make this thin content page something that's valuable to somebody who's searching, or just take it out of Google entirely. So on the technical SEO side, this is an area which comes up a lot. We have schema. Schema as a whole, you can handle through JSON for the big areas of your site. Also, the most common schema areas of your site, that could be the business contact information or similar. but it does get trickier when you're using schema in article. Videos and audio files are a good example of this. I'll get to that in a minute. But if you're an education site or like a recipe website, you're probably using schema pretty prolifically, and it's important that you make sure that your writers know how to implement that correctly. The good news is that WordPress, for instance, has a lot of plugins that can help with that. So that makes life a lot easier. But if there are not, it comes down to education. You really have to train the people who are uploading the content to write schema and make it fit with the rest of your website. Video, audio, and images. Again, this is like a big part. Schema is a part of this, but making video and audio files, even images, machine readable is hard to keep on top of at scale. If you've got multiple teams of writers putting content into a dozen different areas on your website, it's really hard to kind of work with these guys to make sure that they're doing something as simple as alt tagging images, never mind using the correct schema syntax on the video file. We have been working with our content teams and rev.com to do transcriptions, and that gives us a real tangible way to highlight the value of schema, and that's been a good way for us to showcase. It's like, hey, this is what we can also put on the page. This is the text version. This increases accessibility. Google can read this, and that gives us a great way to really give a real piece of feedback to our non-SEO folks who are putting out video and audio content. And this is like the big kahuna in the technical side. Indexing issues are what can really kill you over time with Google. No index pages can crush a site if they're confusing Google. If pages are being incorrectly no indexed, you're basically losing traffic. If they are no indexed within your sitemap, Google's going to get confused. These are two really common errors, and they're also really easy to fix. Deep crawl or screaming frog, both are great at like pulling through your site and kind of highlighting any issues here. Another one is 404s, internal links leading to 404s and external traffic arriving at a 404 are going to throw up some confusion within Google. Pages in a sitemap that 404 are going to decrease Google's trust in your sitemap, and especially 404ing pages that still rank in Google. You may be getting thousands of hits a day to a web page that's actually a 404 page. Deep crawl, really good tool for this, highlights 404 pages that are receiving traffic, and that allows you to quickly redirect that so you don't lose that traffic in the long run. Another issue that we find a lot is extended redirect chains. Extended redirect chains can lose both the people who are visiting your site because you have them waiting for a while, and it can lose the Googlebot. An example of this could be you have a HTTP www.example.com that redirects to a HTTPS www.example.com, which redirects to a HTTP example.com, which redirects to a HTTPS example.com, which then gets redirected to a new URL. It's not uncommon to see 8 to 10 length redirect chains appearing on a site because of some HTTP, HTTPS, and WW, non-WW htaccess rules. So make sure that you clean those up pretty fast. If you have links leading to HTTP, make sure to switch them out to HTTPS for sure. Anyway, these do accumulate over time. It is down to poor setup, usually from people who are non-technical, but they can be fixed, and it keeps the bot debt low over time. And another big thing that we've been playing with a lot recently, we're kind of just getting there, but internationalization is, while relatively easy, it can put up a lot of opportunities for error. When you first get started, of course, you have to choose your structure, subdirectory, subdomain, or CTLD. I prefer country top level domains, but subdirectories are my next choice. It keeps everything in the same structure, and Google does like that. But once you've got your international site set up, make sure your hreflang is up to date and verify it every week. It's one of these things that is so easy to get screwed up later down the road. Not intentionally, of course, but people make a change to a rerouting script or something, and it messes with URLs. The next thing you know, your entire hreflang setup is broken. So just keep making sure, like, always check like once a month that your hreflang tags are triggering correctly. And also be aware, on a recent call with John Mueller, he did highlight that US pages that are crawled the most can affect international rankings. So even if you have a non-US language or non-English language page that's being correctly hreflang linked, so it could be in Germany, for example, it can still be affected by the performance of the US page. So whatever you do, make sure that you're tracking the US page performance for the international page variants. Impact from a US page can impact an international page and vice versa. And the final thing I'm just going to cover briefly, because this did impact us, is when you're looking at internationalization, make sure you know what your brand terms mean, and even your industry terms mean in other languages. You could end up going against like an irrelevant popular term or non-competing brand. And what that will do is massively reduce your click-through rate. An example for this is WP Engine is, of course, heavily in the WordPress space. WP, you would think, would be a great term for us, which is true for the most part. But in Poland, for example, that's actually a web portal. It's a very popular web portal. And every so often we see our impressions on Google spike by millions of daily impressions. But our click-through rate drops down to almost zero in Poland because of this WP.pl site. The danger here is that there's no real way to deal with this. There's no way we can tell Google this is wrong. But what we do notice is we see an overall drop in rankings when we see these spikes in impressions in Poland, which is basically when we're competing head-to-head with this web portal in the Polish Google search results. So make sure that whatever you do when you go international, just ensure that in the languages you're really trying to compete in the market for, that your terms, your industry terms, and your brand terms all kind of make sense. And finally, tech stack. Downtime and hacks can wreck your rankings. Make sure that whichever host you use, they have a good track record of security. They have a security team. They know what they're doing. Likewise, like slow sites are going to struggle in any Google ranking now. It can be hard to deal with this if your site's got a lot of bloat in it, but it's worth spending time to slim down your website. Also, go beyond like first page load. A lot of sites focus on first page load as the go-to metric. It is important, but excuse me, but also remember that second page load is just as important. When people are looking at making a buying decision, when you see like this, hey, this 1 second slowdown could really impact sales, it's just as true on the second page load or the third page load or the fourth page load. Also be aware that a lot of hosting providers, they have limits on sessions per second or ads to cap per minute. So sessions per second, if you have, say, with some of the more popular managed WordPress hosts who compete with us, they actually cap out at about 20 sessions per second. We go up into like 140 sessions per second. Same with ads to cap per minute. This is a common e-commerce tracking metric because it identifies a moment where somebody is interacting with your database, and that's important. Like how many ads to cap per minute can your database handle is also worth tracking. This doesn't necessarily sound important to SEO per se, but it can result in bounces. It can result to a bad experience for customers, and it is worth highlighting. So when it comes to getting the tech stack right, it's worth doing before you scale. Build on a stable, strong CMS. Of course, I'm going to suggest WordPress, but yeah, I'm biased. But WordPress is a pretty strong choice nowadays. Whichever CMS you decide to go with, choose a host that's designed for your CMS. If the host isn't designed for the CMS, you're going to encounter a ton of problems. It's not going to be coded correctly. It's not going to have, it's not going to be coded correctly for the CMS. It's going to be slower. You're going to have more issues over time, and you're going to have to maintain security for everything on the server, not just the things you need. Make sure the host is technologically adept. A lot of hosts, for instance, can throw you on a Google Cloud container and tell you that you're infinitely scalable. Not really true. And a Google Cloud container by itself is not really going to be performant. You need to do a lot of customization with cloud and containers to make it work well. So be wary of the cheaper hosts who just throw you on the cloud. It's not worth it. And if you're moving sites, again, speed is a huge issue for SEO. So test out performance on a staging site first. If you don't see performance gains, make sure you reach out to them first. Some hosts use different technologies that may be tweaked for what you have set up. They could be CDN or caching issues, or if you're doing load testing, they may have some security measures in place that could be affecting your test. And once you move, of course, track performance over time. After you move, some hosting providers may limit you if you start to use a certain amount of server resources. So now I kind of want to get to how do you prepare to scale? So when we were at WP Engine and we were first starting to invest in our marketing budget, it was an interesting time. We started growing very fast, incredibly fast. And just to put that in terms of numbers, we are in a growth startup mode where we're looking to achieve at least 30% year-over-year growth every year, which was easier when we were smaller, but now we're over $130 million in annual recurring revenue. That's getting a little more difficult. So when we're looking at how we could scale SEO, we came down to three big areas that we needed to focus on. We need to focus on the process, the tools, and the perseverance. The tools, of course, are the easiest thing, and I'll get to that in a minute, but the process was key. How can we make it so what's more commonly known as the hit by a bus or the heart attack scenario, what I've heard more commonly referred to nowadays is the winning the lottery scenario, which is a little more positive. How can you build a process which you can easily switch people in and out of? This is important, not just because somebody in your office may win the lottery, a key team player, but also if you're engaging third-party companies to come in and build content for you. If you're working with an external company to do a technical SEO audit of your site, or if you decide to change out tools, you need to have a process that can easily work with any change in where the workload is coming from. But you also, when it comes to tools, excuse me, you want to make sure that you have everything set up that you need to give you the most information possible, so that you can make the right decisions. If you don't have the right tools, if you have bad data, you're not going to be able to make the right decisions. And finally, perseverance is key. especially as you start to scale faster and you have multiple teams working on the site, multiple teams uploading content, you're not going to be able to deal with everything at once. You're going to have to be able to track it. You're going to have to be able to persevere. You're going to have to be able to just knock these things out over time. And sometimes that can be frustrating. Sometimes you want to just like dive in and kind of get stuff knocked out. But as a company grows and you're reliant on different departments to complete different tasks, it does take time, and you have to be prepared for that. Here's kind of like a brief breakdown of some of the tools we use. You'll notice, for instance, that we do have Mars SEO Clarity and Authority Labs, which do pretty similar things. We also utilize Deep Crawl and Screaming Frog, also very similar. We do use SEM, Russian Spy for competitive intelligence. And of course, there's like Google Search Console, Google Webmaster Tools, and Google Trends. These tools are pretty much cover all the bases we need. There are a few more agencies we utilize outside of this, but for the most part, this is a tech stack, can give you pretty much all the information you need, all the answers you need to make the right decisions in your business. And that's all I have.
Good stuff, buddy.
I rolled through that pretty fast. It's like when I tested this took me 40 minutes, but I ran through that quick.
No, I'm the same way, man. I can't. The tests never work out the same way as doing it live.
Yeah.
So you just pushed out like a ton of information that I'm probably gonna watch this a bunch of times to get through that.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that kind of the baseline of a lot of this is when you're scaling a business and you're scaling different traffic sources. SEO is just one of the traffic sources I manage, but it is one of the most important. You'll find that the process is key. Finding ways, repeatable ways, kind of for what you're doing and get stuff out there. I'm sorry, this cold is killing me. But the process is key. Tools, of course, help you make the right decisions. But one of the hardest things that I've found is just getting the right people. And when I kind of rushed over the content section, but finding the right people to really help us create the content in the right voice and the right tone, right. That's one of the biggest challenges we've had.
Well, you know what, buddy? Let me ask you, because at Word Agents, that's a challenge that we face. Quickly getting on the same page in regards to brand voice. What would you suggest if to somebody who wants to hire a freelance writer but is scared that they might not understand the brand? How would you get them on board as fast as possible?
For sure. This comes down to process a lot. I would definitely recommend like putting some strong brand guidelines in place. You want to have messaging, excuse me. You want to have the kind of messaging, kind of tone written down. Like, is your brand like playful and friendly, but technologically like intelligent, or is it serious? Do you give away a lot, or do you give away a little?
Do you show examples in your style guide for those phrases? Because a lot of times playful and funny might mean 20 different things to 20 different people.
So we're actually revamping our style guide, but yeah, we do have examples kind of highlight like, hey, this is an example of a friendly message. This is an example of a message that's too friendly. Yeah. So we do put those in there. I do agree with the last speaker in that culture fit is key when you hire, and generally speaking, I think if you have the right culture fit, you're bringing in people who kind of understand your message already kind of inherently as well. So they kind of get your voice. If you're bringing in somebody who is a good culture fit, the voice might not be as hard, even as a freelancer, to pick up.
For culture fit, do you think that you can find somebody that fits the culture right out of college, or do you think they need a little bit of workplace experience first?
I think culture fit can be for anywhere. So I have an intern who's recently been promoted within the company, and she has done an amazing job of taking on work. She's been really smart, fantastic culture fit. Same way we have people who are have been in the industry for over a decade who, again, like work hard, they work smart, and they fit in really well with us guys.
Oh, man.
We have lost people in the past who have been good and did do a great job, but they didn't fit in with the company. So it's not that it's exclusive. You can find people who are not culture fits who can do a great job, but generally speaking, they're not necessarily going to stay with the company long term. And that's where you have to factor in that if you hire somebody who's good but not a culture fit, you're probably going to have to rehire for that position again in the future.
Right. Well, hey, we were chatting during your presentation in the chat box here when you were talking about content creators and outsourced help, not like adding alt tags to images or some of the schema markup stuff. And a lot of us are using or taking advantage of advanced custom fields to kind of just create those fields in every post. Are you doing that too?
So to a degree, yes. For the most part, we are using JSON scripts that contain the kind of schema rewrites we need. I'm kind of in like a pretty good position here because the amount of schema we really need to implement is relatively light. We have, for instance, company addresses, etc. Those are important. It does look like Joey's dancing right now.
That's amazing.
So we do have JSON to handle the basic schema. Where we're running into scaling issues, and this is something that we're still trying to solve internally as well, and is coming down to training, is video content, audio content, and even images. But video and audio, for sure, that's a big issue for us. We are doing transcriptions now, and we are trying to get better at it. And some of this comes down to like in-article schema markup using section tags, for instance, like HTML5 tags can help with that.
Yeah.
They also help with like answer boxes and things as well. So that's just good basic best practice.
Cool,
but yeah, the issue we have there is that right now it is kind of manual for us. You just have a tool, but
and that's painful, I'm sure, right?
yes, and trying to work with non-technical writers and bring it into like, hey, just put this code in these sections.
So you're using somewhat of like a facilitator now that takes it from the non-technical people and spruces it up, kind of.
Right now we're working on those articles to put in the schema code. It's not a good long-term solution. It's not scalable, and that's why we're looking for either a modified plugin or creating a tool internally to kind of make it drag and drop.
Cool, man. Cool.
Yeah.
So something else that popped up popped out to me while you were speaking is when you're talking about the duplicate content for the meta information in your title tags. Did you guys run into any kind of traffic loss or ranking loss specifically because of that? Or is it just more of like a best practice that you should make sure that's not dupe content?
Yeah, no, it's both.
Yeah.
Best practice, and I've seen traffic loss. I actually didn't realize that we were seeing a traffic loss until I did an audit and switched out some duplicate title tags, duplicate titles and metas. We saw a near instant improvement in rankings.
But really, the only way to identify it is to make that change first and hope for a pop in traffic.
Yeah. But it's worth doing as soon as you can do it. And the good thing about titles and metas is that it's so easy to make these unique. The content is so light. It's, like for even like a relatively large site, you can bring on board like an intern or like an entry-level position person to run through them all and at least switch them out to something new. Doesn't mean great, but just getting them unique. So yeah.
We on one of my affiliate sites, we just did an audit and just swapped out all the meta descriptions for like some CTA heavy meta descriptions, like you know, like read this article because, and definitely saw an increase in click-throughs, and you know, traffic just followed as a result. So definitely something that you wouldn't think about it as the most important optimization thing you need to do today, but it is for sure.
Yeah. It's worth checking meta descriptions as well, what's actually appearing on the page. If meta descriptions are a little too clickbaity, Google will often switch them out now. One thing we noticed, for instance, and I don't know how familiar you all are with WP Engine, but our plans start at $35 a month. But Google was showing a meta description with scale plans starting at $290 a month. So basically, if somebody was searching for WP Engine cost, and you can still see this with some keywords, it will come up with our plan start at $290. Now, of course, that's going to be like really off-putting
to Google.
Right? Yeah, it's like $290. Like no. So you can get these situations where Google is cherry picking from your page because the meta description you had was the messaging was too strong, like too heavy, too spammy. So I'm not surprised you saw an improvement there, because having a more natural meta description can really help in those situations.
I've seen that too. It's like a hybrid description where you get the first half of your meta description and then a snippet from the rest of the page. So have you dialed it back and actually saw your full meta description show up as a result?
Yeah, so we did a couple of tests there. To start with, we just changed the meta description, and this helped on some terms, but not all of them. We actually found that our next test, or the second test we did, was we put some more content on the page, made the meta description align with that content. Mm-hmm. Again, that helps with some keywords, not all of them. And what we realized is that we actually have like kind of like a best value highlight on our pricing table, and we think that Google's actually picking up on that, and that's why it's highlighting the $290 plan first.
Cool, man. I'm jealous that of larger companies than ours, just because you guys have the resources to do this kind of testing, and that's like what I'm really passionate about. Finding the little loopholes and finding little the little gains here and there. So definitely learning a lot here.
Yeah,
Mike Ritter says you got to drink some water, buddy, before you pass out.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's a shame it didn't work out for you, and a bunch of crazy people just signed up at $290.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Yeah.
God, that must have been really frustrating for a while.
But yeah, Google's Google, you know. But yeah, one of the things we found there as well, and we've been focusing more on that recently, is answer boxes like Google Position 0. And meta descriptions can actually help a little bit with that as well, but mostly that's like top page content, and that comes down to like schema, like HTML5 usage.
Oh, you need to speak to Ben. He's the Position 0 king from his...
Oh, really?
No. I still
he had it locked down in a really competitive niche, so I've been jealous of him ever since.
Position 0 is where it's at. Yeah.
I typically just use a introductory section to a list. Like, now you're gonna read, this list. Then I have an H2 heading. That's my main keyword, and then you have your list items beneath that. And more often than not, I seem to be grabbing some featured snippets like that. So
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. So, guys, do we have any other questions for Oliver here?
Oh, let's have a look in the chat. What have we got?
Yeah.
Lots of sympathy for you feeling poorly. So it's a
thanks, man.
It's a good crowd.